Today, we're trading the Earth for the stars as we track down Wilson's in the final frontier. 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff of the spacecraft Wilson to outer space. Hi, folks. Welcome to the Cuz Wilson Show, where we talk about people, places, and things named Wilson. This week's topics are all about Wilsons in outer space. In this week's people category, you're going to learn about an amazing astronaut named Wilson, and there's also a second person named Wilson in space. This week in our places category, I've packed it with 3 different places, 2 in outer space, and 1 bonus space here on Earth. And in our things category, there is a thing named Wilson that doesn't obey the laws of outer space. You're going to love it. And of course, we have Wilsons in the news and Wilsons in sports here on Earth.
And now, it's time for the places category.
This week, we're going to have a lot of fun because I'm going to build a Wilson sandwich. That means I'm going to sandwich 2 places named Wilson with a thing right in the middle. We'll start from the farthest away and we'll work towards Earth for our topic categories. Our first place on the top of this sandwich isn't actually named Wilson, but I added it to this episode because, number 1, it's a solar system discovered by an astrophysicist named Wilson. Number 2, it's kind of like our Wilson Fowler rope in episode number 4. It bends the laws of nature just a little bit. And number 3, the news of this discovery was just announced this year, back in February of 2026. Exploring this Milky Way is much easier if you have a digital guide who can process 1 billion years of history in just a few seconds. So I'm going to have Larry narrate this new arrival on the scene. Take it away, Larry.
For a long time, we thought we had the recipe for building a solar system all figured out.
The recipe seemed pretty simple, right? Small, rocky planets get up close to their star, and then the huge gas giants form way out in the cold. But what if that blueprint is wrong?
Well, a team led by Dr. Thomas Wilson from the University of Warwick found a system that totally flips the script.
Around this red dwarf star, they found this super weird kind of sandwich layout of planets.
And as Dr. Wilson said, you just don't expect a rocky planet on the outside of gas giants.
So what on earth happened here? The team had to play cosmic detective to figure it out. First, they checked if the planets got knocked around or maybe suffered some kind of massive collision.
But nope, simulations showed the system was stable. The real answer was in how it was born.
This led them to a pretty wild new idea, inside-out planet formation. Okay, so here's the theory. The inner planets form first, gobbling up all the nearby gas and dust. Then, over millions of years, most of the gas in that stellar nursery just disappears. That final outermost planet, yeah, it was a late bloomer to the party. By the time it started forming, the gas buffet was totally empty. Only rocks were left. So this late arrival grew up in a totally different environment than its older sibling planets.
This isn't just a weird one-off. It's a clue that could rewrite the entire rulebook.
I mean, we've found over 6,000 exoplanets, and we're learning they're all incredibly diverse.
As ESA researcher Isabel Rebelito puts it, these finds force us to look beyond our own cosmic neighborhood. What we once thought was a universal rule might just be a local suggestion.
It really makes you wonder, is our solar system actually the weird one?
Thanks again, Larry. This solar system sits in the Lynx constellation, even though it is 116 light years away. You can actually see it at night with a regular set of binoculars and, of course, a telescope. It's famous for being one of the faintest constellations in the entire sky.
And now, it's time for the things category.
Now, we put in the center of our sandwich a thing named Wilson, and you get a 2-for-1 value, like a cheese sandwich with provolone and Swiss. This thing named Wilson is both a comet and an asteroid, and it's a whole lot closer to Earth. It was named after the 2 astronomers, Wilson and Harrington, but that's not the 2-for-1 value I was talking about. Here's Larry again to deliver the flavor of an asteroid with the spice of a comet tail.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking a cosmic cold case that literally baffled astronomers for decades.
Okay, let's dive into this. Can a totally dead rocky asteroid suddenly wake up and act like a comet?
Historically, science drew a strict line. Asteroids were just inert rocks, while comets were icy bodies growing brilliant tails.
Let's trace this 30-year timeline, from a fleeting comet to an asteroid, and then a stunning mathematical match.
Our mystery starts in 1949 at Palomar Observatory, with a brief, fleeting glimpse of a comet sporting a tail.
But with only 3 photos taken using 1940s tech, this faint comet quickly vanished and was declared officially lost.
Jump 30 years to 1979. Astronomers spot a fast-moving rock, but it had absolutely zero comet-like activity. So what's really interesting here is the wild contrast. An icy comet in 49 versus a totally dead rock later.
Then, in 1992, brilliant math on old plates proved these 2 distinct discoveries were actually the exact same object.
This completely shattered the traditional paradigm, earning the object a super rare cross-listing as both an asteroid and comet.
Fun fact, its dual discovery name, Wilson Harrington, actually breaks the strict 16-character limit for asteroid names, a real rebel. So what exactly is the anatomy of this bizarre hybrid object? Let's take a look at its physical makeup.
To put it into perspective, its massive 4-kilometer diameter is roughly the size of the entire island of Manhattan.
Its sheer size and Earth-crossing orbit classify it factually as a potentially hazardous asteroid, or PHA. Don't panic, though. Despite that label, its 2039 pass is a very safe 16 million kilometers away from us.
It's a dark, carbon-rich rock. But notice its rapid spin of 3.5 hours. That right there is a huge clue.
So here's our central mystery. How did a dry, dark asteroid manage to fake being an icy comet?
And this brilliantly illustrates that unlike real comets, Wilson Harrington lacks continuous ice sublimation. It only had one single outburst.
A 2024 study finally proved that 1949 tail was actually just dust shedding caused by the object spinning too fast.
So the crucial point is, this forced scientists to create a brand new category entirely, the active asteroid.
Because of this unique status, it's an incredibly desirable target for spacecraft sample return missions.
This object bridges the gap, forcing us to view the solar system as a dynamic, deeply interconnected environment.
Is it a dying comet or just a spinning rubble pile? What other cosmic chameleons are hiding out there?
Thanks again, Larry. And just as most of us Wilsons are interesting, mysterious, and complicated, this comet is yet another example of why it's so much fun to explore Wilsons in our universe. The bottom of our sandwich is our second place in space, named Wilson.
And now, it's time for the Places category.
Since we just watched Artemis 2 go around the moon, I want to introduce you to a place named Wilson on the moon. And on this place, we upgrade the asteroid's value from 2 to 1 to 3 to 1. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, just look what you get. If you listen today, you get a bonus 3-in-1 value. Here's Mary to deliver the value.
Hey, I'm Mary. In this explainer, we're diving into a colossal lunar mystery hiding right above us. Just imagine the absolute, sheer, violent force it takes to blast out these massive lunar impact craters. The Wilson crater spans an incredible 69 kilometers right across the moon's rugged southern highlands. And get this, it plunges a jaw-dropping 3.4 kilometers deep into the ancient lunar crust. So, who actually gets the ultimate credit for this colossal landmark up there? Here's the plot twist. It's actually named after 3 completely distinct, totally brilliant scientists, all named Wilson. First up is Alexander Wilson, an 18th century solar astronomer and a total star of the Scottish Enlightenment. Born in 1714, his absolute biggest breakthrough happened in 1769 when he discovered the famous Wilson effect. He proved sunspots aren't just floating clouds. They're actual physical depressions in the sun's surface. Mind-blowing, right? Now let's pivot from massive solar astronomy to microscopic particle physics with Wilson number 2, CTR Wilson. Also Scottish, he built the first cloud chamber in 1895 and even snagged a Nobel Prize in 1927. His genius invention let us literally see invisible, electrically charged subatomic particles for the very first time. Finally, meet our third namesake, the 20th century American stellar mapper, Ralph Elmer Wilson. Ralph earned his PhD in 1910 and spent literally decades meticulously tracking the precise movements of stars. He measured stellar radial velocities, figuring out exactly how fast stars move toward or away from our sun. His massive 1953 catalog seriously became the data-driven backbone of modern galactic astronomy as we know it. Just look at that incredible contrast, from tracking tiny subatomic particles to mapping vast galactic stellar motions. So this single crater perfectly unites 300 years of diverse human discovery across all of science. Which totally leaves us wondering, what other incredible human stories are hiding right up there in the stars?
Thank you, Mary. I always knew there was a Wilson effect at work. Whether it was 100 years ago or just this morning, Wilsons all over the world make an impact that resonates with all of us. Our third place name Wilson is here on Earth. This place name Wilson was included today because it's located at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Before Artemis II lifted off for the mission around the moon, they received a little boost from a railroad at Wilson's Corner. Here's Larry to do the heavy lifting on this story.
Imagine a quiet fishing town vanishing overnight, totally replaced by NASA's industrial heartbeat. Let's explore.
So, what actually happened to the lost town of Wilson? Well, to figure that out, we gotta go back.
Before rockets, Merritt Island was just booming citrus groves and sleepy fishing villages. Wilson was one quiet rural settlement.
Then, the space race hit hard. The government suddenly bought up nearly 84,000 acres of land for NASA.
This massive land grab for Apollo literally swallowed the tiny town of Wilson, wiping it completely off the map.
In just 1 decade, Wilson morphed from quiet agriculture into a massive heavy-duty aerospace rail hub.
The name survived as Wilson's Corners, but ironically, it honors an Army Corps general, not the actual original town. The contrast is totally wild. Peaceful citrus orchards were completely paved over for a 7-track classification rail yard.
Today, instead of tractors, massive NASA locomotives hauling helium cars roar straight through Wilson's historic footprint. It's crazy.
Wilson Yard became the beating heart of NASA's 38-mile railroad, splitting traffic directly toward the VAB and launch pads. To safely maneuver that highly explosive aerospace cargo, the junction actually relies on 46 deliberate manually operated slip switches.
By 1983, the Space Shuttle program demanded a massive engineering upgrade at the yard to handle immense new loads. To prevent shock loading on 150-ton rocket segments, engineers installed ultra-heavy-duty continuously welded rails and rock-solid concrete cross ties.
Why such an extreme upgrade? Well, a single loaded solid rocket booster car weighs a staggering 510,000 pounds. Even with those upgraded rails, these specialized trains purposely crawl at just 25 miles per hour to protect hardware.
The tracks went totally quiet post-shuttle, but recently the Artemis program actually resurrected Wilson Yard for heavy lift deliveries.
Modern Artemis operations swapped out those massive old locomotives for highly versatile, super cost-effective industrial railcar movers instead.
This streamlined chain successfully delivered 10 massive booster segments all the way from Utah straight through Wilson Yard.
Today, this entire 19-mile corridor is a recognized historic district, cementing its legendary Apollo and shuttle legacy forever.
This track isn't just history, you guys. It remains a vital lifeline for America's future heavy-lift space missions.
So, as commercial spaceflight booms, how will private partnerships reshape the ghost town of Wilson next? Keep wondering.
Thanks again, Larry. Wilson isn't really a ghost town because there aren't any old abandoned buildings there anymore to house the ghosts. Well, this is kind of a fun fact. The area code in that county where all this action takes place and all those towns around there is 321. Liftoff. Yep, the area code is 321. Before we go on to our final frontier of Wilsons in space, I have an idea and a request. This episode would be great to share with other Wilsons that you know, but it also would be a good one to share with people with a different name who might like sci-fi or aviation, aerospace, or astrology. So even though their name is Wilson, they'd probably like it anyway, and they may know someone named Wilson to share it with. This episode would also be great to share with a middle school student because they just may be inspired to be an astronaut. So after this episode closes, hit the share button in your podcast player or just copy the video address and shoot them a text. I can't wait for you to hear this story about this amazing astronaut named Wilson who's been on 3 NASA Space Shuttle missions and now is on the Artemis team. Here's Mary to introduce you to a Wilson that's out of this world.
Her career is incredible. It literally spans from the last states of the space shuttle all the way to the dawn of our return to the moon. Today, we're going to talk about the journey of an astronaut who might just be at the very center of humanity's next great adventure. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This quote from Planetary Radio isn't just some wild guess. It's a real possibility, and it's built on a lifetime of dedication. It really sets the stage for one of the most exciting stories in space exploration right now. So who is this person we're talking about? Her name is Stephanie Wilson, and she's not just an astronaut. She's a highly accomplished engineer, a veteran of multiple spaceflights, and, this is key, a member of the Artemis team. That's the group in charge of getting us back to the lunar surface. But you know, every journey like this has to start somewhere, right? There's always that one moment that lights the spark. So for Stephanie Wilson, where did this dream of reaching for the stars actually come from? Well, what's so interesting is that it wasn't one big, dramatic event. Sure, she kind of remembers watching the Apollo landing as a toddler, a fuzzy image on a black and white TV. But the real defining moment, it came from a middle school assignment. She had to interview someone in a field that interested her. She chose an astronomer. And that one conversation, well, it turned a casual curiosity about space into a real, concrete goal. Okay, so you've got the spark. But that's just the beginning, right? It ignited this incredible journey, both in school and in her career. This wasn't just about dreaming of space, it was about getting her hands dirty and building the actual skills to get there. And just look at this path she carved out. It's so methodical. It starts with an engineering degree from Harvard. Right out of school, she's working on the huge Titan IV rockets. Then she goes on to get her master's in aerospace engineering, which leads to a job at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, working on the Galileo mission to Jupiter. I mean, each step is a bigger and bigger building block. And it all leads up to 1996, when she's selected by NASA out of, get this, 2,500 applicants. And this wasn't just busy work. Long before she ever flew, she was deep in the weeds of some seriously complex engineering. We're talking about making sure these massive rockets don't fall apart during launch and ensuring a tiny spacecraft millions of miles away could aim its cameras perfectly to study Jupiter. That is high-stakes, mission-critical work. So, with that incredible engineering background, what's next? Well, it was finally time to leave the planet. Becoming a seasoned astronaut is a whole other challenge, and this is where Wilson really proved herself in, well, the most demanding environment you can possibly imagine. 42! What's that number mean? That's the total number of days Stephanie Wilson has spent in space. 42 days. Think about that. More than a month of her life has been spent living and working in orbit. That's the kind of experience you just can't get anywhere else. Her time in space is built on 3 missions, all on the Space Shuttle Discovery. And if you look closely, you can see a real theme in her duties. On every single flight, she was a primary robotic arm operator. The person maneuvering those huge modules and doing inspections. On her first flight, she was also the load master. She was in charge of transferring 28,000 pounds of cargo. To put that in perspective, that's like managing the logistics of moving 2 adult elephants into orbit. But her contributions aren't just about what she did up there. Some of her most important work has happened with her feet planted firmly on the ground, acting as that crucial, trusted link between mission control and her friends in space. This job is called the Capcom. It's short for Capsule Communicator, and it's always an astronaut. Why? Well, who better to talk a crew through a tricky situation than someone who's actually been there? The Capcom is literally their lifeline to Earth. And this role put her right at the center of a truly historic moment. During the very first all-women's spacewalk with astronauts Christina Koch and Jessica Meir, it was Stephanie Wilson's calm, experienced voice in their ears, guiding them from mission control in Houston. A total veteran mentoring the next generation as they made history. So, we've got the inspiration, the intense preparation. the experience in orbit, and the experience on the ground. You can probably see where all of this is heading, right? How does it all build toward that next giant leap? This is where it all comes together. She's part of that initial Artemis team. Her incredible experience both in space and in mission control makes her one of the most qualified people on the entire planet for these new lunar missions. And that puts her in a position to make some serious history, not just as the first woman, but also as the first African American to walk on the moon. And you can just hear the excitement in her own words. This is so much more than a job for her. It's a real passion. Kicking up some dust, helping the mission in any way she can. She's ready for all of it. That is the voice of a true explorer, just eager to get to the next frontier. So, as pioneers like Stephanie Wilson get ready for this next incredible chapter, the question really goes beyond just one person. I mean, it's been over 50 years since humans walked on another world. This time, a whole new generation of explorers is going to go. So the real question is, how will their journey change not just the moon, but all of us back here on Earth?
Thank you, Mary. You did a stellar job. And you can be sure that I'm going to follow Stephanie's career, and I'll keep you informed about her next step in space. Maybe she'll be doing the Texas two-step on the moon. But even if Stephanie becomes the first woman named Wilson to grace the dust on our moon, she won't be the first Wilson on the moon. I'll have Larry tell you about the hidden story of the first Wilson on the moon.
Okay, let's dive into this wild story of the Wilson Club from the historic Apollo 14 mission. So what's the most famous six-iron in history? Get ready for some serious rule-bending ingenuity. Meet our star, the 16.5-ounce Wilson Staff Dynapower six-iron head that actually went to space. And this brilliantly illustrates the hack. Shepard swapped a steel shaft for a collapsible aluminum space tool. Shepard and golf pro Jack Harden secretly modified this everyday clubhead to fit a lunar sample collector.
But how did it get there? Shepard brilliantly smuggled the heavy head and two balls in a simple tube sock.
He made a tense deal with NASA brass. He'd only swing the club if the mission was flawless. Let's move to and see how this builds. After 9 grueling hours of moonwalks, it was finally time. Now that bulky, pressurized spacesuit was super stiff, forcing Shepard into an awkward, one-handed sand trap swing. His first attempt? A famously bad chili dip. He totally missed and just kicked up lunar dust. When he finally made clean contact on the Wilson head, Shepard famously bragged it flew miles and miles. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the modern forensic data uncovered 50 years later by Andy Saunders. Saunders completely debunked the myth. Those balls only went 24 and 40 yards down the lunar fairway. Still in 1/6 gravity? Hitting a one-handed 40-yard drive in a stiff suit is a crazy athletic feat. Plus, with 0 atmospheric drag in a vacuum, that ball flew perfectly straight. No slice, no hook. For perspective, a modern pro hitting at 185 miles per hour would crush it 4,611 yards up there. Back on Earth, singer Bing Crosby actually convinced Shepard to donate this famous Wilson clubhead. Today, that legendary Wilson six-iron head sits at the USGA Museum, a literal piece of space history.
So the crucial point is, the balls stayed on the moon, but that ingenious Wilson head came home.
Is this ultimate space hack a monument to ingenuity, or our profound instinct to play anywhere in the universe?
Now, I love golf, and I have many cool stories to tell, but Larry, that story is light years better than any of mine.
Are you ready for another Uncle Willie joke?
Uncle Willie went to a new restaurant on the backside of the moon called Mike's Moonwalker. It was started by the Jackson 4. Used to be the Jackson 5, but Mike's no longer with us. Uncle Willie said the cheeseburgers only offered Swiss cheese, but the combo meal, at least, included sun chips and a drink called Tang. For dessert, you could even get a moon pie. And if you wanted a snack, they offered Milky Way bars, Mars bars, Orbit gum, and Starbursts. I love those Starbursts. He also showed me a map for its location on the backside of the moon. Ooh, it looks like he's got asteroids. Man, it's so dark back there. I bet you with the naked eye you could see Uranus. Okay. Overall, Uncle Willie said it is a pretty good restaurant, but it didn't have much atmosphere. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. As you look at the cars in the line for the drive-through, it reminded me there are cars back in the day which actually had celestial names. Can you remember any? Hit pause real quick and try to think of some. But if you're listening with someone else, make a contest out of it. See how many of those old cars you can list that have celestial names. And then when you come back, I'll give you a list of the ones I found. Okay, now that you're back, how many could you name? I probably came up with 3 or 4, but I did some research and boy, there's a lot of them. Here's what I came up with. Ford had a division called Mercury. Remember the Mercury? That was a standalone division for the first 6 years of its life, and then it was later combined with the Lincoln division in 1945 to create Lincoln Mercury. They made the Comet, the Meteor, and the Voyager, kind of like our space shuttle. Ford also made the Galaxy. But Chevrolet, they made a littler car called the Nova. Now, General Motors made a whole division called Saturn. Remember the Saturn? Its first model year was the 91, and the last one was 2010. Mitsubishi made the Eclipse. Remember that? Nissan made the Pulsar. Then there is Subaru. Here's what's cool about that. The word Subaru is a direct translation of the name Pleiades, which is a cluster of over 1,000 stars, but only 6 of the stars are available to the naked eye. Therefore, there are 6 stars in their logo, which also has another meaning. The big star represents the parent company, Fuji Heavy Industries. The 5 smaller stars represent 5 smaller companies that merged after World War II to form Fuji Heavy Industries. There's one more Wilson who's been to space, and this time it really was a living human being named Wilson, and it was just last year in February of 2025. You've probably heard of the name Russell Wilson, right? Well, even though he isn't an astronaut, he has also been up to space and back. He was one of those civilians that went up on the New Shepard rocket from Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origin. Wait, the rocket's name is the New Shepard? Well, that's Alan Shepard that I told you about already, who smuggled the Wilson 6-iron clubhead to hit his golf balls on the moon. Wow, there's another 6 degrees of separation to a Wilson. And that's just like the song from the Wilson Banjo Company called 6 Degrees of Separation. This is getting crazy. All right. There's a great story of why Russell only had R. Wilson on his spacesuit and why ESPN didn't make a story about it. Mary, tell us about Russell Wilson going into space.
Welcome to This Explainer. Let's uncover how one crypto king went from blockchain billions to actual space. So who exactly was the mystery passenger on Blue Origin's 10th crewed flight? Commentator Isabella Gillespie joked he wanted to stay under the radar but over the Kármán line. Our only clue was his flight suit. It just had a mission patch reading R. Wilson. Internet sleuths quickly figured it out. It was Russell Wilson, Australia's super private crypto billionaire. But how does a quiet startup founder decide to just buy a ticket to space? Well, back in 2013, Wilson co-founded CoinSpot, an exchange trading over 370 digital assets. It grew like wildfire. We're talking a rapid surge to over 2.5 million users. The financials totally exploded. In 2022 alone, profits hit a massive $292 million. And from that wild success, Wilson secured a staggering $538 million dividend payout. Owning 77% of the company made him a billionaire, unlocking his ultimate dream of spaceflight. Before looking to the stars, he actually funded a historic partnership with the Western Bulldogs football teams. With his fortune set, he finally bought his ticket for the NS-30 mission in February 2025. It was a quick 10-minute joyride, officially crossing the Kármán line, the internationally recognized boundary of space. When this famously quiet guy stepped out of the capsule in Texas, he just yelled, "Woo!" So it leaves us wondering, right? How will today's digital economy keep funding the final frontier?
Oh, did you think I was talking about an NFL football quarterback? Well, if I misled you with a verbal clickbait, I'm sorry. Not really. I didn't lie, did I? Well, I just wanted to give you a reason to listen closely to my episodes in the future, and I will try to trick you again. And as the famous Louisiana chef named Justin Wilson says, I guarantee.
And now it's time for Wilson's in the News.
Wow, this is perfect timing for this episode. This spring, Wilson Sporting Goods Golf introduced a new line of golf irons named Launchpad 2. I wonder if they knew I was going to mention their golf club that Alan Shepard hit the golf balls with on the moon. I have a link in our show notes for a review of this golf club, but I also have a link for all the rest of these people in the news that is coming up now. Chicago businessman and philanthropist Willie Wilson held his 20th gas giveaway, spending $500,000 spread out between 30 gas stations to residents in the Chicago metro area to help ease the high gas prices we're experiencing right now. The Steve Wilson Quintet is playing at Smoke Jazz Club in New York City. Now, don't get Steve Wilson with the quintet confused with Stephen Wilson Jr. That's Stephen with a PH. He just won his first country music award at the CMA last week. And a few days later, another country star named Wilson finally tied the knot. Lainey Wilson married former NFL quarterback Delvin Duck Hodges, who she has been dating for 5 years. Little League president and CEO Patrick W. Wilson is named to the Positive Coaching Alliance National Board of Directors. Now we highlight athletes named Wilson in sporting news. The late Porter Wilson is honored as the father of flag football. That's pretty cool. Did you know that flag football is one of the next competitions in the Olympics? And related to that, Russell Wilson, Serena Williams, and Tiger Woods lead the charge, partnering with the NFL to launch a professional flag football league for both men and women. And this is to build momentum ahead of the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. Women's soccer star Sophia Wilson scores her first goal back from maternity leave, and it was a game winner. That's pretty cool. One of the best soccer players for women's sports is a Wilson, and currently the best basketball player in women's sports is also a Wilson, named Asia. Quincy Wilson sets a new 400-meter national record in high school track. He swept the New Balance national indoor titles across all 4 years in high school, which is a rare four-peat. In drag racing, Tony Wilson took home the Pro Mod Ironman trophy and a prize money of $50,000. Well, that's about how much drag racers spend on just their tires in one season, so it won't last long. We're in the middle of the pro hockey playoffs, but Tom Wilson's Capitals are not playing. Earlier in March, the Capitals honored Tom with a tribute video for his 900th career game. And guess what? He scores 2 goals to help win the game. Share this podcast with your friends named Wilson. Hit subscribe or follow. Thanks for joining us, and until next week, see ya, cuz. Some portions of the show were created by various AI products and data from the internet. These include explainer reviews by Google's Notebook LM. Well, LM is where I get Larry and Mary from. The Cuz Wilson Show is a product of Name and Culture Media.